Alright, so let's try and understand our Excel file here. Let's understand the Excel data that we have, and just before we load this data into the Power BI desktop, we need to try and understand what our data is telling us. Now it looks like this is a London Dairy consumer promotion, London Dairy for the ice cream, and the promotion ran from the 1st until the 17th of July. Now in column A, you'll see that we have the dates. You have first, second, and so on. Column B has the store name and you have the location. Then in column D, you have the customers reached, the number of samples were given to those customers, and finally the customers who purchased those products. Now from column G until column L, you have the variants of the ice cream. So you have a 1 liter tub, you have a 500 ml tub, you have multi-packs, you have a liter plus a 500 ml tub which looks like a bundle pack, you have 2 into 500 ml, and then this one looks like a buy one get one free, which is 3 into 125 ml plus another 3 into 125 ml. So in column L you have the total sales. If I double click on the sum formula, you'll see that it's adding up all the variants. If you scroll to the right hand side, you'll see that the sales promoters, who are the person selling the ice cream to the consumers on the floor in the malls, you have some remarks that were said by the customers, and these are noted down by the promoters. Now most of them are blanks, but you do have some remarks which are jotted down here by the sales rep or the sales promoters. Now the first row and the second row, you'll see that these two rows have been merged, right? And you have two cells which have been merged here, which gives us the total for each day. If I double click here, you'll see that this is summing the customers reached on the 1st of July. So let's scroll down below and we'll examine the grand total. If I double click on this, you will see that we have all the cells which are randomly placed, and I'm sure that they are not all, because you'll see that we have borders around here, and whoever has done this data has forgotten to add the totals over here. So the grand total seems to be incorrect. Let's filter this. Let's filter this data and let's just examine what our totals are. So if I click on the drop down and I uncheck this and I just leave the grand total and total, let's click on OK. Now if I add this, you'll see that this total adds up to 6,704, but the grand total is showing as 5,626, which is definitely incorrect. Okay, so let's clear the filter. And one thing that I would advise anyone using Excel spreadsheets, try not to merge cells or merge rows, right? There are many other ways you can avoid merging of cells, because when you apply formulas, it makes a mess of the formulas. Now let's go down and let's use the SUMIF formula and let's see the grand total. So I'll type the SUMIF formula. The SUMIF formula is good for adding up totals where you have duplicates. So you have totals here and these are duplicates. So I'd like to select this range. Now when I'm clicking in column A, you'll see that column A and B both get selected because this is a merged cell. So I'd like to go right up to my starting cell, and when I do so, you'll see that the cell reference or the range reference goes right down till column N, right? We're only looking for column A. So we know that our last row is 157. We can remove the column N and we can type in A, and that should give us the complete range of column A. So we have this range, put a comma here. Now in this range, I'm looking for the word total. So I'll type in total, put a comma, and we want to sum the range. So we want to sum the range for column D. So I know that the range starts from row number 1 until 157. So I can just go ahead and type D1 to D157. And you see that my range gets selected. Now let's close the bracket, press enter, and we get a 0. Now we need to debug why the formula is not working. Right, the formula seems correct. So let's go ahead and debug our formula. If I highlight some numbers, I can see that they are summing correctly. So the numbers are correct. Let's examine the word total. If I double click in this cell, now you can see that there is a space after the word total, right? So we have identified our mistake. When somebody was inputting the word total, they gave a space and then they pressed enter. So let's go back inside our formula, and what we'll do is we'll give a space here, and now we'll press enter, and now we get the total, which is 6,704, which should be correct, right? So let's drag our formula, and remember, when we drag the formula, the range changes. So for column A, we'd like to lock this. I will highlight this and use the function F4 to make it into absolute reference. Now I can press enter, and I can drag my formula across. And if I add all of this total, you'll see down below that the grand total should be around 13,636. So keep that number in mind. I'll delete this, and what we'll do in the next video is to go into Power BI, understand the Power BI desktop environment, and then finally load this data set into Power BI. So welcome everybody, and in this video we will take a look at the Power BI desktop environment. And before we do that, if you have not installed Power BI desktop, you can type in Microsoft Store in Google, and once you're on the Microsoft Store, in the search bar you can type in Power BI, and once you type in Power BI, you will be on this page where you can click on this icon which says Power BI Desktop. It's the free version. If I click on this icon, you get the option of downloading it. So you can download and install Power BI onto your desktop. Now once you have installed Power BI, you open up the Power BI desktop and you're presented with this screen. Now you can see I have blank report. So I'm going to click on blank report here. And now we are in the Power BI desktop environment. So you'll see that this screen is my report view. On my left hand side, you'll see we have 4 icons, and the first one says report view. So this canvas is your report view, where you bring in your visualizations and your charts and your reports. You can also import data from here. They give you an option right from your canvas. You can import data from SQL Server. You can paste data into a blank table, and you can also use sample data which is available online. Now that we are on the report view, on the right hand side, you'll see we have so many kinds of visualizations. You have pie charts, donut charts, you have funnel charts, you have column charts, bar charts, you have slicers, you have card visuals. You can also install Python visual. You can also install R. You also have your AI visuals. So AI capabilities are also installed. And if you want, you can also import more visuals from the Microsoft Store. Now, just like Excel, Power BI also has a ribbon, and you'll see that it's underlined here. We are in the Home tab. In the Home tab, you have the option of clicking on Get Data, and you can get data from multiple platforms. The most common being Excel workbook. You have SQL Server. You can also import text files or comma separated value files. You can import from the web. If I click on this option, you can just paste the URL and connect to the web. Then you have, if I click on more, you have so many options. You also get the option of installing or downloading or extracting information from the PDF. If I click on other, again you have so many options here. You can scroll down. Google Sheets, you have LinkedIn as well, Microsoft Teams, Power Platform. Now Power Platform is to do with the online service, Power BI service. You have Microsoft Fabric, Lakehouse and warehouses, data marts, data flows. If I click on database, you have all the databases over here, SQL Server, MySQL database, you have SAP HANA, and so many on, right? So let's click on cancel. If I click on the insert tab, again you can insert visuals from here as well. You have the AI visuals here, right? You have the buttons, shapes, images, text boxes. If I go to the modeling tab, you can create a new table. You can add parameters. If I go to the view tab, just like Excel, you have themes that you can click on. You can import themes. If I click on optimize, you have the performance analyzer, which basically is a tool that analyzes your DAX queries if your DAX queries are taking too long. If I click on help, you can click on the about icon and it will tell you that which version is installed. As of now, I have the February 2025 version installed on my desktop. You can also click on the community, which is the Power BI online community. And for advanced users, you have external tools. You can use Tabular Editor or DAX Studio to analyze your queries. So for now, let's import our data set. So I'll click on Get Data. I'll click on Excel Workbook. We'll point to our file, which is called Londonderry Consumer Promotion, and it's lying in the Londonderry folder, which sits on my desktop. So I'll click on Open, and you'll be presented with the Navigator dialog box, as you can see here. Now this is nothing but the preview. If you click on this button or this icon here, you'll see that Power BI gives you a screenshot of your data set. You can check mark this box, and as soon as I check mark this box, you'll see that the load button turns to green. Now the difference between these two buttons is that if I click on load, it will just load the data set into our Power BI file. Now I have some transformations that we need to do. We need to get rid of all the totals over here because we will be using DAX functions to aggregate our totals. So in this case, I need to transform my data. So I'll click on transform data. And as soon as I do that, you'll see that now we end up in the Power Query editor environment. Now the Power Query is a tool which is already built inside Power BI, and it's a data transformation tool. Basically a cleaning tool where you can manipulate your data and clean your data, right? So now you see that our table is loaded here. It's exactly the same as it was in Excel. You have all totals, and down below you should have the grand total. You have columns here. If I scroll to the right, in the last column we had the remarks. On the right hand side, you'll see that we have daily sales, which was the name. You can rename this, whatever name that you'd like to give your table. On the right hand side, it says, on the left hand side, sorry, it says queries. and this is basically called a query. It's nothing but your table. You can also double click here and rename it from here if you like. On the right hand side, if you see applied steps, now this is what Power Query is good at. Once you do your manipulation, it records all your steps. So the first one is the source, where it imported the data. The navigation was the navigator button, and then it promoted the headers. Now you see these are our headers over here. If I click on this, you see that now the heading is come here. Let me go back one step. You see here it's on row number 1. If I click on promoted headers, it goes up, so it's considered as a header, right? And the last step, which is performed by default by Power Query, is the changed type step. Now the change type is basically you have different kinds of data type. So in this case, this column is dates, so we will be changing this data type to dates. You have text here, you have numbers here, so we need to understand our data type and then change them accordingly, right? On your ribbon, again, you have so many features here, and basically these are all the features that you can manipulate your data. Keep rows, remove rows, you can choose columns, you can remove columns. You have data source settings. If your data source settings change, you can change it from here by clicking on change source. Then you have the transform tab. You can replace values, just like find and select in Excel. Unpivot columns is a big feature in Power Query Editor. You have split columns. You can split by delimiter, by lowercase, uppercase. You can format into lowercase, uppercase, capitalize each word, and so many other features, right? So let's go back in our home tab. Let's close and apply for now, and let's see what happens. So if I click on close and apply, you'll see that now Power BI Desktop is loading the data, and it's loading the data in the background. And on the right hand side, now you'll see that the daily sales is uploaded. If I click on this and expand this, you'll see that we have all our columns here. But remember that we had our columns and the headings were named differently. So in the next video, we will have to go back inside Power Query Editor and change our headings and change the data types. So let's go ahead and perform some transformations in the Power Query Editor. Now on the right hand side, you'll see that we have columns, but these don't make sense because our headers were store location, city, and we had the variants, and in this case it doesn't make sense. So we can't make out which column belongs to which data set. So now to go back inside Power Query Editor, you need to go back in the Home tab. In the Home tab, you'll have Transform Data. You'll click on this and click on Transform Data, and that should bring you back inside the Power Query Editor. Right now on the right hand side, you'll see that these are the steps that were performed by default. We didn't do any changes, but these 4 steps were performed by default. Now the beauty of this is you can see that there is a cross mark, right? So the changed type step, we can delete this and we can get rid of the step. So I can click on the X button and that deletes the step. For the promoted headers, remember that it promoted this header and put it right on top. We can delete this because we want to bring these which are on row 3 as our headers. So we can delete this step as well. Now let's perform our transformations. So the first row, the second row, and the third row, we don't need this because we can see from the 4th row we have our headers which need to be promoted up, right? So we need to get rid of the first 3 rows. So we can do that from the Home tab. In the Home tab, you have the option of removing rows. I'll click on this and I'll say remove top rows. So you'll be presented with this dialog box. It says number of rows that you need to remove from the top. So I need to remove 3 rows from the top. I'll click on OK and see what happens. You'll see that now those 3 rows have disappeared, or they have been deleted. Now you have your headers which are sitting on row number 1. We need to promote this on top as our headers. So you see a small filter type button here. You can click on this drop down and you have so many options here. You have an option here which says use first row as headers. So I'll click on this and now you'll see that all our headers are right on top and it has performed the promoted headers step. Now once again, change type step was performed by default. So I need to delete this because I'm going to change the type of each column. I'm going to change the data type, right? So I'm going to delete this. So that step has been deleted. Now we have dates over here. But before we change the data type, we need to get rid of our totals, because dates is a data type and total is text. So you cannot mix both of them in the same column. You need to have the same kind of data type in one column, right? So I'll click on the filter button, and if I scroll down, you have grand total and total. I'll uncheck this and I'll uncheck total as well. Now you have a clean column just with dates. So now when you click on this part over here on the left hand side, if I click on this, you'll see that now you get all the data types: decimal number, fixed decimal number, whole number, percentage, date, time, and so on. In this case, we just have dates. So I'll click on this date to make it into a date data type. So now you see this icon. This basically is telling you that this column is now a date data type. Now you have text in these columns, nothing but pure text. So we'll click on the data type again and we'll change it to text. And that's the symbol for a text. I need to do this for the city as well. We'll change this as well to text. Now we have our numbers starting. So if I scroll to the right hand side, we have all numbers here. Imagine if we have 40 or 50 columns. Do you think that we're going to do it one by one? No. There is a shortcut for this. So I'll click on the first column which our numbers are starting from, and I'll scroll to the right and I'll click on the shift button on my keyboard and click on the last column where we have our numbers. I'll right click here and here we can say change type, and we want to change it to numbers. Now you have decimal numbers, fixed decimal numbers, and whole numbers. In this case, I know that all our numbers are whole numbers, so I'll change them to whole numbers. So clicking on whole numbers, now you'll see the icon for whole numbers, right? So far so good. We have total sales. Now I'm going to remove this column because we're going to add the totals in the Power BI desktop environment. So I need to get rid of this column. So I'll right click here and I can say remove. On the right hand side, you'll see that Power Query is performing all the steps. So if I click on removed columns, you'll see that this is called the M code, right? This is basically the coding that is happening behind the Power Query editor. The change type, if I click on this, you'll see that if I open up this drop down, these are all the types or the data types that have been performed that we clicked on. That's M code again. Let's scroll to the right. Now total sales was removed, so I'll click on the last step. You'll see that it has been deleted. We have remarks. Now remarks are all text, so I need to change this into text as well. So I'll click on text and that is good now. So we have our text and all the blank cells or the blank values are called null values. Okay, so far so good. We have all our steps which have been recorded. You can also rename your steps here. So instead of change type, I can double click here or right click, click on rename, and here I can type my own name. So I'll say changed data types, press enter, and now you can understand that you have changed the data types for multiple columns, right? So now our data is looking clean. Now we can load this back. So if I click on close and apply, and we should come back into the Power BI desktop. Now you'll see that our columns are neat. We have all our columns here. We have the date column, we have the city column, we have the store column, we have the remarks column, and these columns, what you see where you have the sigma sign, now these are the columns where you have the numbers, right? So these columns, if I drag any one of them, in this case, let's say if I drag the multi-packs onto the report view, you see what happens, right? So it gives you the total, right? Let me just close this. Now when you drag a column which has numbers, Power BI desktop goes ahead and aggregates those numbers, and you can see that it sums all those numbers and gives you the total. And that's one of the reasons why we removed the totals from our data set. So for now, we'll go ahead and give our file a name because it still says untitled. So I'll click on file and click on save as, and I'll browse to my device, and let's call this London Dairy Consumer Promotion, and I'll save this in the London Dairy folder. So clicking on save, and I'll see you in the next video. Now in the last video, when we dragged a column right onto our report view, we saw that Power BI actually went ahead and aggregated the number for the column which is called multi-packs, and it gives a total of 1225. Now when you click on this part is basically called a visual, right? And if you see just above, you'll see that this is showing as a card and it's highlighted in the background, which means that by default, when you drag a column which has numbers, it changes into a card visual, right? So since this is selected, let's explore the visual. Now when you select the visual, you can drag it right across your report view on the canvas, and once it's selected, you see that you have two icons here. Now the topmost icon says add data and build your visual. Now if I click on this, you'll see that it shows data here, and it shows that we have dragged this column which is called multi-packs, right? And it's showing as sum of multi-packs. Now you can add data here. If I click on add data, you can add many more if you need to. So let's say if I want to add this column, I can click on add, and if you see the visual now, you'll see that now it has changed to a different type of visual which is highlighted here, and it's called a multi-row card. So we have two columns which are aggregated, sum of 2 into 500 ml, which is showing a total of 35, and the first one. In this case, I only need the first one, so I'll cross it out, and we're back to the first number. Now, if I click on this, it says add or remove visual elements. So the visual elements are the value and the title here. So if I click on this, you'll see this part, category label, is what is called sum of multi-packs, and it is check marked. So if I remove the check mark, I remove the category label. Let's keep it for now. we don't have any title, we can go ahead and add a title if you want, right? So in this case, I don't need a title. I'll remove it. So we're back to the same position. Now you have what's called a filter over here. Now currently there is no filter on this because all what we did is we dragged the multi-packs column and it aggregated the total. Let's say that I want to see the total for a particular city. So I can expand the filters pane and it says filters on this visual. Currently it's showing sum of multi-packs, which is this, and it says is all. That means there's no filters applied to this number. If I'd like to see a filter that is a particular city, what I can do is I can drag the city and drag it into filters on this page, right? Or you can also drag it into this part which says filters on this visual. Now, as soon as I drag it over here, you'll see that city, it's showing me all the cities. I can select one. In this case, let's click on Dubai and let's close the filter pane now. And now if I bring my mouse over the filter icon, you'll see that it says the filtered city is for Dubai, right? And the number reflects the number for Dubai. Let's explore the three dots here. If I click on the three dots, you'll see that it says export data. You can export this data. If I click on this export data, it will export this data in a CSV file. You can remove it from here. So if I click on the crossout, it removes the visual. Now I'll press Ctrl Z to get back. And we have Spotlight. Now what is Spotlight? So let me make a copy of these visual. Ctrl C, Ctrl V. So I have three visuals now. I'll change this card into, let's say, a stacked bar chart. And I'll click on this and let's change this to a column chart. So we have a column chart, we have a bar chart, and we have a card. Now when I click on this and I click on Spotlight, see what happens. So when you have a number of visuals on your canvas and you click on Spotlight, that visual is under the spotlight and the rest of them is just in the background, right? So it's just to put focus on that visual. So let's click back and uncheck it and let's delete the other visuals for now. Now what about formatting the numbers, the fonts or the colors or the background? Let's click on the three dots. There's an option here which says format. If I click on format, you'll see that it puts a blue line background, which means that it's in the format option right now. And the format pane opens. You have size and style. You can increase the height or decrease the height, the width. You can give it a background color. So let's expand this. You can change the color from here. So if I make it blue, the background changes. Let's remove the background for now. And I think I have two visuals on top of this, so we can delete one of them. Let's go back inside formatting. You can give it a border. So if I click on border, you'll see that now the border has been applied. Let's click on this. Let's remove the border. You can give it a shadow effect. So it looks much better with the shadow effect. And there are many more other options, right? So let's come to the important ones, which is the callout value. Now the callout value has a font size and the font type. You can change the font type from the drop down here. You can increase the font, decrease the font. You can make it bold, italic or underline. You can change the color from here. So if I make it dark blue, you can display the units. Currently it's set at auto. I can also make it to none. Then you have value decimal places. You can increase the decimal points from here, right? You have other options, which is the category label, which is this part here. If I uncheck it, the category label disappears. Let's bring it back on, and same as your callout value, you can also change the font size, change the color if you like. And let's say I don't want to show sum of multi-packs, I just want to name this as multi-packs. So you can click on this, and here where it says sum of multi-packs, you can double click here so that you come into edit mode, and you can delete this part and press enter. So now you see it just says multi-packs. So that's a little bit about exploring your visuals. This is a card visual, and we saw how to change the font, the type, the callout value, the category label. You can also give it a title if you want. And in the next video, we'll explore some other options, and we'll try to bring in some more visuals. So we have a filter applied on our visual. If I click on the filter and I hover my mouse, you'll see that the city of Dubai is filtered. So let's get rid of this filter first. I'll expand the filters pane, and we can remove the filter from here, and we're back to our original number. I'll close the filters pane, and let's delete the visual by clicking on delete button. Right now we are on the report view, and if I go to table view, you'll see that we have our complete table just like it was in Excel. We have date, store name, city, customers reached, the variants of the ice cream, and in the last column we had our remarks. Okay, if I go to the model view, currently you'll see that it's showing just one table because we imported just one table. So let's go back to the report view, and let's expand our table. Now we have store here. So if I drag this onto my report view, you'll see that now we have a different kind of visual, which is a table visual. So you'll see here we have two icons, and this one is highlighted and it shows as table. If I click on the second one, this now becomes into a matrix. And what's the difference between a table and a matrix? If you see the visual, it looks almost the same, but in a matrix, it's just like a pivot table in Excel. You can have multiple categories going by row. So in this case, I have data by store. I can add data again, and let's add data by city. So you'll see now here, it's back again into a table format. If I click on the matrix format, you'll see that now we have a plus sign here, and you have some arrows on top. So let me explain how this works. If I click on the drop down, it says click to turn or drill down. So if I click on this, it will automatically expand and show me the values for that particular city, right? So it's showing the city and it's showing the store name on top. Let's go back. Let's uncheck this. Now I have store names here. If I click on the double headed arrow, this will basically show me the second level, which is the city. So let's click on this. Now you'll see that it's showing me the city. Let's go back to our store names. What about the fork? Now the fork, if I expand this, you'll see that now it expands all the store names with their city names, right? So these are the options that you have in the matrix. If I click on a table, it will automatically show me by columns. Now one thing, we have store names. What I'd like to do is I'd like to capitalize each alphabet for the store name and the city name. So we can do that using Power Query. So to get inside the Power Query editor, you need to click on Transform Data. Click on Transform Data once again, and you will end up inside the Power Query editor. Now once we're inside the Power Query editor, you have store name here, and remember the data types. The data types are showing as text. So I'll click on the store column and I'll go to the transform tab. In the transform tab, you have the format feature. If I click on format, I can use the uppercase formatting option, and now you'll see that all my names have been uppercased. Let's do the same for city. Click on format uppercase. Now we're done with our formatting. We need to go back to the Power BI desktop. So I'll click on file, close and apply, and Power BI will apply the changes in the background. It will refresh the data and you'll see that your formatting has now been applied. Now let's go ahead and try and bring in the totals so that we can visualize the totals sold by city and by store. So I'll click on the visual and let's expand our table here. And what I'd like to see is the totals for the variants of the ice cream. So we have 500 ml tub, 2 multiplied by 500 ml tub, and so on. So what I'd like to do is, if you see that you get the sigma sign, now these are columns, right? And these columns contain numbers. And when you get the sigma sign, that means that you can aggregate the column. You can sum the column. So let's go and take a look at the table view, and we'll see that the variants, they all contain numbers in the columns, right? So we don't have the totals. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to add all of them and put them as totals. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 variants, right? So what we can do is we can add a column to our table here. So I'll click on home and I'll click on new column in the calculations group. So we'll click on new column, and as soon as I do that, you'll see that in the formula bar it says column. That means you can give this a name. So I'll delete this, and using control and my scroll on the mouse, I can increase the size here. Let me expand this from here. So you can see that I'm expanding it using the control and my scroll wheel. Now I'll type here totals, and this is going to be the formula name. So we'll write an equal sign and we're going to type sum, and I'll click on sum. Now sum has an argument which says adds all the numbers in a column, right? So we have our columns with numbers, and what we're going to do is we're going to add our variants now. But you'll see that this is so much different from the Excel version of sum. In the Excel version you can add cells. Now there are no cells here, but there are columns. So you need to add the column one by one. So we'll go ahead and we'll add the first one, the first variant. So I'll click on this. You see that daily sales is the name of the table. First it's the table name followed by the column name. So I'll click on that and it gets inputted in our formula bar. So I'll close the bracket and I'll use another sum, and we'll add the second one now, the second variant. Let's close the bracket and use another sum for the third variant. So 1 liter tub. Let's close the bracket and let's go for the fourth one, 2 into 500 ml. Let's use a plus sign, sum again, and now we're going for the fifth one, 500 ml tub, and we should have one more, the sixth one, which is the multi-packs. So I'll click on multi-packs. Let's close the bracket and let's press enter now. So let me just collapse this. Let's scroll to the right, and now we have a column which is totals, and you'll see that we get the totals throughout our column. So the total is adding up to 2296. Let's go into our report view and let's drag in our totals now. So I'll just click on the totals and I'll drag it onto my visual. When I do so, you'll see that first of all the visual changes. We need to change it because it says arrange data for me. So I'll uncheck this and I'll click on the matrix. So we make it into a matrix. Let's rearrange our data. We have store. I need city to be on the top level. So I'll drag city on top. And we have our totals here. Now let's expand the first city, which is Abu Dhabi. So you'll see that we have the total which is showing 137,760, and these totals look wrong, right? These are the totals for each store, but for sure they are wrong. Now what could be the reason? Let's go back and examine our data set. Now you'll see that over here it says 2296 and the same number is spilling all throughout the rows. Now this is what we say is called as row context, right? When you're in table view and when you're viewing your table and you're looking at the columns, each row is a row context, right? So what is the context here? The context here on the first row is for the 1st of July in the store AUH Co-op Mall in the city of Abu Dhabi. Customers reached was 43, samples given was 14, and so on. So this first row is the row context. The second one is another row context, and so on. So we have row context which is being shown here, but there is no filter context, right? So these two are different explanations. Row context is nothing but when you're viewing your data row by row. But when we talk about filter context, now this number should be different at this row level, this number should be different at this row level, and this number should be different at this row level, and so on. Now the problem here is that there is no filter context. So the total for 2296 is not the correct total for the city of Abu Dhabi and for the 1st of July. So basically what I'm trying to say is that there is no filter context, right? So that's the reason why you're seeing the same number throughout. So in the next video, I'll explain how to overcome this and what we can do to change our row context into filter context. Right, so in the last video, we saw what was row context, and you can clearly see that row context gives us the wrong numbers. So let's go back in the table view, and we did our totals here where we added using the sum formula, and we used sum on each column to get the totals for 6 variants, right? So what I can do here is, let me just expand this again, and let's format our formula here. So what I'll do is I'll place my cursor right before the sum, and I'll use Alt and Enter to go one row down, and after the first sum I'll click on Alt Enter again to get the second sum just below it so that the formatting looks neat. Again I'll click just before the third sum, I'll click on Alt and Enter. The fourth sum, let's bring it down, Alt Enter. The fifth one we'll do the same, and for the sixth one we'll repeat it again. So this looks much better and much neat so that anyone looking at the formula understands that we are summing each column, right? Now when we said row context, we said that the row context does not have any filter context. What I mean by that is if you examine the first row, on the 1st of July for this store in this city, the totals for our variance should be 13 plus 16, which gives you 29, and we should get 29 as totals. If I take the second row, we have 13 plus 3 is 16 plus 14, which is 30. So we should get 30 for the second row and so on. So how can we correct this? Now, there is a function in DAX which is called calculate, right? Calculate is the most common and most important function that's used in DAX. Basically, DAX is the language that is used with Power BI, and DAX stands for Data Analysis Expression. Now, to change the row context into filter context, we can apply a calculate function. So I'll press Alt Enter and I'll type in calculate, and you'll see that calculate has an argument and it's called the expression. Now the expression basically is our formulas, which are the sum formulas, and it also has another argument which is the filter argument. Now in this case we don't need to do anything, we just need to give it the expression, which is this part. That's the expression. So we'll come down, press Alt Enter, and we'll close the calculate function. Now once I press this or I press Enter, you'll see that the totals change. So I'm clicking on Enter, and now you'll see that the first one was 29, and the second one, when we calculate the total at that row level, it was 30, and now our totals look correct. So using the calculate function, we're able to alter our row context into filter context, right? So we have filter context now using the calculate function. Now let's go back to the report view and let's observe our totals. Now you'll see that the numbers have changed. If I expand this, clicking on the fork, now you'll see that all our numbers are correct for each store at the city level. So we built our table by city and by store, and before we move forward, let's go and format this visual so that it looks a little bit more appealing. So you'll see that as soon as I select the visual, I can resize it, and let's do a little bit of formatting on this visual now. If you see above, you'll see different kinds of charts. So how do you know that which visual is being selected here? You'll see that this visual is slightly highlighted, right? And it says this is a matrix. Now the matrix, if you think of it in terms of a pivot table in Excel, it's almost the same like a pivot table in Excel, and we can do a little bit of formatting on this. So on the right hand side, where you see I'm hovering my mouse, you'll see that it says format. We can click on this button and we get the format tool here now. So I can just slightly expand this so that we see all the features. Now the visual is selected. So there are a lot of features that you can basically try and manipulate and try and make the visual look much better and appealing. So first and foremost, let's go to size and style. Now you'll see you can change the height and the width from here. You can change the background color. If I expand this, by default it's white, so I don't need to change the background here. I'd like to give it a shadow effect. Currently there's no shadow effect, so I'll just enable this, and now you'll see that there is a shadow effect and the visual basically pops out from the screen. Let's move forward. We have a title here and it's switched off. I don't need to give a title because it's self-explanatory. You have city and then the store names followed by the numbers. So let's go to the layout and style presets. You have the style set at default. You can click on the drop down here and Here I'll choose minimal, so you'll see the effect. Now it looks even much more neat, and the layout I'd like to change it into tabular form. So when I change it into tabular form, it will basically look like a pivot table, and you'll have two columns, the first column being for the city and the second column will be indented for the store names. So I'll click here and I'll choose tabular, and now you'll see that we have city in one column and the stores in the second column. Let's format our headers, and that should be down here below, which is called column headers. Let's bump up the size to 12. Let's make it bold, and our store names are okay, our city names are bold, and you have the totals which are bold, and I think that's good enough for now. Instead of saying sum of totals, we can just give it the name of totals. So you have column subtotals, subtotal label, and values. We don't need to change the values for now. Row subtotals, you can change the formatting from here as well. And what I'm looking for basically is the sum of total title. Now what you can do is you click on this icon which says add data and build your visual. Once you click on this, you'll see that it says rows, columns, and values. Now we have sum of totals here. You can just double click inside this and you see the cursor blinking. So you can change this. I'll delete this and I'll just leave it at totals. So you'll see that now it says totals. Okay, and by default it's summing the values. You can also click on this arrow and it says summarization. Click on the drop down. You can click on average, which will give you the average. You can also find the min, the max. You have count. Let's click on count here. And what other features do we have? We have standard deviation, variance, and median. In our case, the sum makes more sense, so I'll let it be at sum for now. So we're done with our visual. Now we'll move on to our second visual, and we'll try to examine or analyze the sales by the day name. So what I'd like to see, or what the manager would like to see, is when the sales are high. Is it high on the weekend? Is it high on the weekdays? So we'd like to analyze our sales by the day name. So let's go ahead and build our second visual where we would like to analyze the sales by the day name. So we'd like to analyze whether the number of units was sold more on which day or on the weekend. So what I'll do now is I'll close the format pane. Let's expand the data icon here and I'll expand my table. And in the data table, or let me go to the table view, in our data set you'll see that we have a column which has the dates, right? So if I click on the filter, you'll see that we have all the days only in the month of July. In fact, we have the days starting from the 1st until the 17th of July. Now the formatting is done in such a way where it shows Monday 1st of July 2024. Let's go back to the report view, and your date column, if you see this date column, whenever you have a date column in your report or when you load your table with a date column, what Power BI does is it gives you basically a date table. Now when I expand this, you'll see that it says date hierarchy, right? Let's expand this further and it says year, quarter, month, and day. But in fact, when we saw our table view, we had only days starting from the 1st until the 17th of July. So if I drag the date hierarchy onto the report view, and if I drag our totals over here, Let's drag it onto this visual. Now you'll see what happens is by default the chart has changed. So let's change it back to a matrix and let's expand this. So we are in the year of 2024, and since it's data for July, it shows under quarter 3. So if I expand this, it will show us all the day numbers, right? Now what we'd like to analyze is the days where the sales were most, whether it was a Monday or a Tuesday or a Saturday or a Sunday. But in this case, it doesn't show us, it just shows us the day number. So what can we do to show us the day name? Let's change this first into a column chart. So I'll click on clustered column chart. Let's expand this and let's remove month, quarter, year, and let's keep it for days for now, right? So it's showing the 5th, the 10th, the 15th. So there were no sales here. So let's format this visual so that we get all the days visible here. So we'll pull up our format pane, and what I'm looking for is the x-axis. So I'll click on x-axis, and where it says type, which is continuous, I'll click on the drop down and let's change it to categorical. So we get all our days now, right? Let's delete the title here, which is for the x-axis. So I'm already in the x-axis. If I scroll down, you'll see that the title is enabled. I'll uncheck this to remove the title, and I also want to remove the title on the y-axis. So let's close this. Let's look for y-axis, and I'm turning off the title. Now we don't have the day names. So what we can do is we can go into our table view, and here we'll add a new column. So I'll click on new column. Now this is basically called a calculated column because you're doing a calculation on this table and you're adding a column. So therefore it's called a calculated column. So here I'll type weekday, and we'll use the weekday function. And basically the weekday function has 2 arguments. It says date and it says return type. Now the date is what we need to give from our table, which is the date column. So if I scroll to the left, we need to give this date. Now whenever you're referring to a column from this table, you need to start with the table name. Our table name is daily sales, which is here. So all I need to do is type daily sales, and as soon as I type daily, you'll see that we get the table, and all these are the column names. I'm looking for the date column. So I'll click on this and I'm looking for date here. So I need to enable date here. That is the first argument. I'll put a comma here, and now it says return type. Now in Europe or US, the weekday starts different. Since I'm in UAE, so our weekday starts from Monday. So what does 1, 2 and 3 stand for? So if you see 1 here, on the right hand side there's an arrow. So I can expand this and it says Sunday is 1, Monday is 2, and so on. So I am looking for Monday, which should be 1. So I can come down. In fact, let's type it once again. I'll put a backspace, put a comma, and with my arrow key, I'll come down to number 2. And now it says Monday is 1, Tuesday is 2, and so on. So this is the one I'm searching for. I'll click on 2, I'll close the bracket, and let's press enter. Now you'll see that we have a weekday here, which says 1, which is Monday, right? Now we need to do one more thing. This date, I want to use a formula where I can extract the day name. So let's use another calculated column and I'll call this weekday name. Weekday name is equal to, I'll use the format function here, and the arguments for the format function is value and how you would like to format it. So the value again is the date column. So I'll type in daily or daily sales. I'm looking for the date column and I'll enable dot date. I'll put a comma here and in double quotes I'll put D 4 times, which is basically it will give you the day name. So I'll close the bracket, press enter, and now I get the weekday name. So you see Monday is showing as 1, Tuesday is showing as 2, and so on, right? So let's go back to our report view. Now let's change the x-axis here. So I'll delete this from here. I'll add data, and remember we've added the weekday name. So I'll enable this and we get our weekday names. Now you'll see that the starting is from Tuesday, right? We would like to start basically from Monday onwards. So on the 3 dots on your visual, you can click on this and you can sort the axis. So I'm sorting the axis by weekday name. It changes. I'd like to start by Monday. So I'm looking for sort axis again and let's try for ascending. When I click on ascending, it starts by Friday. Now what's happening? It doesn't start from Monday, right? So in this case, what you need to do is you need to go back in your table view, and since you have the weekday name here and you've already extracted the weekday number, so the weekday number is your sort column, which basically means when I click on weekday name, I want to sort my column according to the weekday number. So with the column selected, when you select a column, you'll see column tools on top. So I'm looking for sort group. I'll click on sort by column and I want to sort my weekday name column from the weekday number. So I'll click on this and now you'll see the magic happen. I'll click on report view and now you'll see that it starts from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Now the interesting part is what I thought would be that the number of units sold would have been higher on the weekend, which is a Saturday and Sunday. But in this case, in this data set, what we find is that the first 3 days of the week are high sales, as you can see in the chart. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Now let's go ahead and format our visual. What we can do is we have a clustered column chart here. We can change this into a clustered bar chart. So I'm clicking on clustered bar chart and this should give us a little bit of real estate. So I can drag this. Let's do a little bit of formatting on this. I'd like to enable the data labels. So with my visual selected, I'm looking for data labels. Let's enable this. We get our data labels. Let's expand this, do a little bit of formatting. We have series selected here, which is our sum of numbers. We have value here, sum of totals. Let's make it bold. Let's make the font size 10. Display units is fine at auto. We have detail, no need to do anything here. We have integer numbers, so we don't need any decimal places. Let's make our y-axis bold. So clicking on y-axis, let's make it 10. Let's make it bold here. Let's also give our visual a shadow effect. So clicking on size and style, let's enable shadow. And let's also change our title here. So I'll enable title. Let's delete the text here and let's say, or let's ask a question, which days sold most? Let's make it bold and let's bring it in center. And I think now our formatting is done. Let me just reduce the size so that we get all our numbers outside the bars. So we're done with our second chart. Let's bring it to the right hand side. And now we have made our clustered bar chart. Now we're done with finding the weekday sales. So let's move on into our data set and let's explore what else could be done. Now you see these columns, they have the sigma sign, and when you see the columns with the sigma sign, that means that you can use any aggregation formulas, for example the sum formula. So we have customers, the number of customers that made a purchase, the number of customers that were reached by the sales promoters, and the number of samples that were given to the customers. So let's drag one of these. I'll drag customers reached onto the report view, and you'll see that by default it comes into a card visual. So if I see here and I hover my mouse, you'll see that card is selected and it's highlighted in the background. Let's resize this and let's click on the drop down here, and if I scroll down you'll see that there are two different kinds of cards. So by default this is the old card, and now we have the new card with the flash icon. So clicking on it will change the old card into the new card. Now there are a lot of features in the new card, so we'll be exploring the different kinds of features. So we have customers reached. Now what I can do is I can drag different kinds of measures onto the same card visual, which is the new card visual. So I have customers reached, I'll drag customers purchased, and I'll drag samples given. So you'll see that now all three numbers come into the same card visual. Instead of building separate cards, the new card visual gives us the options of adding multiple items. So let's go ahead and format this visual now. So what I'll do first is, since we have lack of space on the report view here, I'll click on the card and I'll use Ctrl X to cut it from here. I'll open up the new page temporarily and we'll paste our card visual here. Let's increase the size here. Let's go to our format pane and let's open up size and style, and let's see if we can format any of the features here. We have the background. We can change the background color. Currently it's white, so I'll leave it at white. I don't need to change the background color. Yes, I would like to give it a shadow effect, so I'll enable this. We're done with size and style. Now for title, if I enable this, I don't want to give a title here because we already have our titles here. So I'll uncheck this. Let's go into the layout. Now the layout, by default the arrangement is in a single row horizontally. I'd like to change it to a vertical position. So I can click on the drop down and say single column. Let's resize this and let's enlarge our card so that we have all three numbers easily visible. So that's about it for the layout. Now for the callout values. The callout values are the numbers here, and we need to format our numbers. Now you'll see that it says apply settings to series. So for the first series, I have customers reached. I'll click on customers reached and I need to change 7K into the exact number. So when I scroll down, you'll see that display units is set on auto. Let's click on the drop down and change it to none. Now we have the numbers, but I also need to put a comma separator after the 1000. So I'll go back inside the data view. I'll click on customers purchased, and as soon as I do that, column tools are enabled. I'll click on the comma sign. So you'll see the formatting being applied. There you go. Click on customers purchased, which is this one. The comma sign is already enabled. And now for samples given, click again on the comma and it should be done. So we'll change the formatting of this as we go ahead. So let's go back into the format pane. We were at call out values, sum of customers reached. Now let's choose sum of customers purchased, and let's change this from auto to none. So you see that we have the 1000 separator. Let's do this for the third one, which is samples given. Scroll down and change this to none. So we have our exact numbers now. Now for sum of customers reached, I'd like to change the title. So I'll click on my build your visual and we'll double click here, and let's scroll to the left and delete the unnecessary text. Let's click on the second one. Let's do the same. And the third one, which is samples given, I'm using backspace and I'll press enter. So that looks much neat now. So let's go back inside our call out values. Let's click on customers reached. Now what other formatting can we do? I'd like to change the number font. So I'll click over here and make it into dark blue. I'd also like to change the title. So let's see how we can do that. We have the label here. So we have the text color. Let's make it dark blue and we can make it bold as well. Let's do the same for the next one, which is customers purchased. Change the font color and change the label color as well. Third one is remaining, which is samples given. So far so good. Now we've done our basic formatting. Now what I'd like to use is some icons. For customers reached, a different icon. For customers purchased, and a different icon for samples given. So let's see how we can do that. So we have our call out values. I'll click on the first one, which is customers reached. Let's scroll down. And where you see reference labels, let's expand this. We have customers reached here. Let's scroll down until you see images. Now I'd like to add an image, but I'd like to add it for the customers reached first. So we'll enable image and it says image type. We want an image. We'll click on browse. And when I click on browse, I already have my 3 icons here. So I'll click on customers reached. Let's click on open and you see that it comes over here. Now the numbers are jumbled up because of the size. So let's scroll down. Position, I would like it at the bottom. So I'll say below text, and now we get it below the text. So space between the image and the call out, I like to reduce this. And it says size. Well, we can play around over here. If I say 1, it disappears. So let's keep it at the default. Or if I disable this, that looks much better with the icon displayed perfectly. So we need to disable the fixed size. Now let's go ahead and do the same for the customers purchased. So we need to scroll back right up for our call out values. Now we'll click on customers purchased Let's scroll down where it says reference labels, and we have customers reached over here. We're looking for images, customers reached. In fact, customers reached is already done. So we need to change this for customers purchased. So let's click on customers purchased. Our reference label needs to be changed as well to customers purchased, and the same for the call out values. It's already there, fine. So let's scroll down. Now we need to add our image. So I'm looking for images. Let's enable the image. Let's select our image. And this one was for customers purchased. So I'll click on the purchase icon. Let's click on open, and let's put this as below text, and let's disable this. So you see that now the formatting is perfect. Now the last one, which is samples given, let's go back to call out values. The last one is samples given, and I'm looking for reference labels. So we'll choose samples given here. Now we'll change the image. I also need to set this to samples given first. Enable image, click on the image, samples given, click on open, and let's format this. We want it below the text, and we need to disable fixed size. So far so good. And now you'll see that our icons are right in place except for the customer's purchase. So I must have made a mistake. Now the problem with the new card is that there's so many features that you sometimes even get lost with so many features being applied. So I'm looking for customers purchased. Let's go back to the call out value. Customers purchased. I'll scroll down until I see reference labels. I'll choose customers purchased here. Now I'm looking for images. So we'll choose customers purchased here. And I need to click on browse. Purchase icon. Let's bring this in, and we're good to go now. So now that we have our 3 icons set, and I'll explain how I got the icons in a bit. Let's Control X from here, and let's bring it back into our first page. So what I'll do is I'll bring this to the right hand side. Now you see that I cannot bring it to the right hand side. When this happens, you can click on the 3 dots and then shift or move it, right? So I have my numbers here. Customers reached, customers purchased, and the number of samples that were given. Right, now let me show you how I got these icons. So I have opened up PowerPoint here, and you see that I have all 3 icons in place. Let me open up a new slide. I'll click on blank, and I'll go to insert. I'll click on icons, and here you can see that you have so many icons that you can place inside PowerPoint and then use it as a JPEG or a PNG file. So if I type here customers and press enter, you see that we get so many icons. Let me just click on any one of them and click on insert. So you get this, and on the right hand side you have the designer, which is built into PowerPoint. So I can click on this and automatically it gets enlarged. Now what you need to do is you need to go to file, click on export, click on change file type. You can choose either JPEG or PNG. In this case PNG works much better, so I'll click on PNG, and then you can save it in your folder or on your desktop. Right, so that's how I used these icons as images, and I imported them into the Power BI desktop file. Alright, so we can move forward now with doing some calculations, as you can see that in this visual we just have the totals for each store and by city. So what I'd like to see is what was the minimum quantity sold for each store and what was the maximum, and we can also find out the percentage contribution for each store within the city and the percentage of contribution for each city, right? So let's expand this for now, and you'll see that my visual is selected. So I can click on the build visual. When I click on that, I have values here. So what I need to add now is a second value for totals. So I'll click on totals, and in the search bar I can also type totals. Let's check mark this. So I get totals for the second time. Now you'll see both of them are exactly the same. Now the reason of putting totals the second time is because we're going to change this, and we're going to change this into the minimum quantity sold. So where you see the right side arrow, just click on this and you will see summarization by default. So let's click on the drop down, and you have some features here that you can use, which is average, minimum, maximum, count, standard deviation, and so on. So in this case I'm looking for the minimum. When I click on minimum, you will see that now I get the minimum quantity sold for each store, right? So we can do the maximum as well. So we can open up our table, and instead of adding it from the build visual, you can also drag it directly onto your visual, right? So we'll change this to the maximum. I'll click on maximum now. So we get our maximum, and we need one more thing, which is an important one, and that's the contribution for each store within the city and the contribution per city. So I'll drag totals one more time onto my visual, and you can see that this visual is already overlapping. So let's reduce this temporarily. We'll fix that later. So selecting the visual once again, click on the build visual, and totals will now change it to sum or percentage of grand total. Now you'll see that we don't have the percentage over here. We just have the basic features, which are the sum, average, maximum, count. Now to get the percentage, either you can write a DAX measure, or you can come on the center part of this and right click here. When you right click here, you will see that now it shows show values as, and you have percent of grand total, percent of column total, and percent of row total. Now in this case I'm looking for percent of grand total, so I'll click on this, and now we get the percentage, right? So you see 11.19 is the percentage of contribution for Safari Mall within the city of Sharjah. And at the city level, you'll see that Sharjah contributes the highest with 35% share, followed by Abu Dhabi 34%, Dubai only 29%, and Ajman around 1.8%. And in total it shows you 100%. Right, so we can also adjust our headings here. You see that they're already expanding and the visual has expanded here. So let's select it one more time. Let's click on the build visual, and in minimum of totals I can just double click over here, and you see the cursor blinking. So I'll use backspace, and we'll leave it at minimum, pressing enter. I'll do the same for the max. Let's get rid of the unwanted text. We have max now, and then percentage of totals. So I'll just call this percentage, press enter. So that gives us a little bit of space. Now I can reduce my visual, and we can enlarge our visual again, right? So you'll see there's a little bit of gap between this visual and this visual. So I can just drag this, and once I do, you can see that now it shows the red dotted line, which basically tells you that they are aligned on the top. So let's do a little bit of formatting on our percentage numbers. Let's click again and we'll click on the build visual, and for percentage I'll right click here and we get conditional formatting. So you can see conditional formatting highlighted here. I'm going for background color and format style is gradient. For the maximum, wherever the maximum values are high, you have a darker variant of the blue color. You can choose any color that you want from here, and for the lowest value it's a lighter shade. So let's keep it on default. Let's click on OK. And the advantage of this is, like, when anyone is actually visualizing the visual, the first numbers that they would see is the darker ones, right? So you'll see that Nesto, this store in Dubai, contributed to around 14% within the city of Dubai, right? So we have our visual in place with the totals, the minimum, the maximum quantity sold, and the percentage of numbers for each store within the city. So now let's add a donut chart, and we have a little bit of space here. In fact, I can just drag this visual a bit up and I'll click on the blank space, and we'll use this space to show the contribution by city. I know that we have it in a table here, but I'd also like to show it in a donut chart. So on the visualizations, you can see that we have a donut chart. I'll click on donut chart, and for the values we'll add our totals, and for the legend, now for the legend we can use city. So I'll add data and I'm looking for city. So let's go ahead and format our donut chart. I'll go to the format pane and we have the legend here. So let's format the legend. I'd like to bring it down below. So I'll click on the drop down and we'll choose bottom center. Let's also format this so that we can show the city. So that's the slices. We have different colors. I'll leave it by default for now. You can also align the spacing for the inner radius. So if I reduce this, you see that now the space or the inner circle gets reduced. Let's drag it back to around 55%. Let's go for detail labels, and our numbers, which are by default outside, I'd like to keep it for outside, but you can change it for inside or the other ones as well. For label contents, we have the data labels showing here. Instead of the legend, if we remove the legend, we can also show the city name over here. So that will expand the donut chart and give us a little bit of space. So I'll click on the drop down, and here I'll choose category and percent of total. So now you see that we have the city name followed by the percentage. So we can get rid of our legend now. So I'll turn it off, and you see that now our donut expands and we get a little bit of more space. Let me also remove the title from here. So I'll uncheck title, and let's make our details a little bit bold. Clicking on values, currently it's at 9. We can check if 10 works, and let's make it bold, and let's change the font to black. So now we're done with our donut chart, and for all the visuals we had used shadow effect. So I'll do the same for our donut chart, going into size and style and enabling the shadow effect. Right, so our donut chart is complete, and I think this dashboard looks good enough and it's giving us all the details. Now in the next video we'll add a slicer for the dates, because we're not showing the dates here. since we have dates running from the 1st till the 17th of July. Now let's go ahead and add a slicer so that we can filter our dashboard by the dates. So I'm clicking on slicer, we get a slicer, and we need to add a field here which is the dates column. So I'll click on add data and I'm looking for my date column. I'll select this and you get our default slicer. Now let's do a little bit of formatting on this. You'll see that the first date or the beginning date starts from the 1st of July and ends on the 17th of July. So we'll go to our table view and we'll see that the first date indeed starts from the 1st of July and the last date is on the 17th. Let's do a little bit of formatting on our visual. I'll click on the format pane and let's give it a shadow effect. Now we have slicer settings here. In the drop down you'll see that it's checked at between. You can also use it at a vertical list where you get all the dates. You can use a tile which gives you all the dates, which is not recommended because we have 17 dates, and you have before, after. You also have a drop down where you can choose the dates, but in our case I'll leave it at between. Now let's get rid of the header here. So I'll uncheck this and we have a slider here. You can filter the dates. You see that in the background all my numbers are updating automatically, right? So as the dates change, the numbers change in the background. But I don't want this, I don't want the slicer, so I can disable it from here. And let's reduce this. Let's click on this visual so that I bring it down. You see that the alignment is out here, so I'll drag it slowly down, and when you see the red dotted line, that tells you that the alignment is correct. So let's leave it at there, and let's bring our slicer on top here. Let's resize it a little bit. And that looks good enough. I don't see the shadow effect, so let's click once again, clicking on size and style. Let's enable the shadow effect, and now that looks good enough. Now if you want to change the dates, you can just type in here. You can see that the cursor is blinking in the background and it starts with the month and the date. In our case, the dates start from the 1st, so I can change it from here. Click on delete, click on 1, and our numbers update in the background. Now the other easy method is to click on the calendar icon, right, or the calendar button. So when I click on this, you see that now it gives you a calendar. So if I want to choose 2nd, you'll see that the numbers change and we have 2nd reflected. Right, so let's keep it on the 1st of July until the 17th of July. Now our dashboard is complete. We'll do a little bit of tidying up, and before we do that, in the next video we'll try to analyze our numbers. So most of our work is complete and we're done with our visuals and formatting the visuals. Now let's try and do a little bit of analysis and validation of our numbers. So before I do that, I'll just double click here and let's rename page 1 to dashboard, and let's pick a single store. So if I click on, let's pick on Ansar Mall Al Nada. When I click on that, you see that all the visuals in the background update accordingly, right? So for Ansar Mall, from the date 1st till the 17th, the total number of customers reached were 320, from which the number of customers which made a purchase were 80 and the samples given were 204. Now on the right hand side you can see that only 3 bars are highlighted. That means the sales for this store were only done on Wednesday, Tuesday and Monday. And when I bring my mouse over each bar, you'll see that we get tooltips. So the sum of totals, which is the grand total for Tuesday, was 657 and 30 units was sold for Ansar Mall, right? Down below in our donut chart, you'll see that the blue line, which is the highlighted part, is for this store and the contribution is 3.57% out of the 35% for the city of Sharjah. Now let's validate these numbers. The total units sold was 82. So let's go to our table view, and first thing is we'll filter the store. I'll check mark Ansar Mall, click on OK. Let's scroll to the right hand side. We have our totals here. So let me pull up my calculator. And let's add our totals now. So we have 17 plus 7 plus 22 plus 16 plus 13 plus 7, and that gives you 82. So our totals are correct. Now the minimum sold within that period or that store was 7. So let's check it. You can see that 7 is indeed correct, and the maximum that was sold is 22 units. So we have 7 and we have 22, right? So our numbers are correct. Now when you click on any of the text visuals or your icons or your charts, you'll see that all your numbers update accordingly, right? Now if you want to go back to the default view, you'll click back one more time and it should come back to the original state. If I click in the donut chart for Sharjah, everything filters for that city. Click one more time and it comes back to the original state, right? So everything is interactive in Power BI, and that's why it shines out from Excel. Now you make your daily reports in Excel, but you can also make your charts, but the interactivity part is very limited in Excel, and that's why now everybody is turning to Power BI. So our formatting is done. In the next video we'll see how to change our themes and change the look and feel of the visuals. Now let's see if we can enhance our report even further. We've used the color palette, which is for blue and slightly orange, but I would recommend not using more than 3 to 4 different colors on your report page. So going to the View tab, now you have a number of themes that Power BI gives you. So if I click on the drop down here, you'll see that you can choose on any of the themes available. So if I click on this, you'll see that instantly your report changes with a different color palette, right? So you can pick and choose any one you like, and the colors update automatically. Now there's one particular theme that I like, which is called the Innovate theme. So when I click on Innovate, you'll see that now it gives a completely different touch to our dashboard report, right? So we have our font, which is in black here. Let's just change this to white. So I'll go to Detail Labels, clicking on Values, and we'll change the color font to white. So that looks good enough, and I think the table visual is also perfectly correct, and the yellow goldish color stands out, right? So if you click on any of the background colors, you'll see that the palette or the color palette has also changed. So if I click on the drop down here, you'll see that the complete color palette has changed accordingly with our theme. So that's about theme. You can also import themes from the theme gallery, which is from the Microsoft website. You can customize your own theme. You can save this Power BI dashboard as a theme, as a JSON file, or if you have imported different backgrounds as JSON files, you can also browse and import them from here. Right, so I'll leave this as it is for the Innovate theme, and we're done with our dashboard report. Now what is remaining is just the front page, which we will design in the next few videos. Let's try and make our overview page, which will be the front page. So I'll go to page 2 and let me just double click and rename this as overview. Now what I'd like to do is to have a blue background, because I know that the Londonderry ice cream on the website has a blue background. So we'll pick the exact color and we'll try to pick the logo as well. So I'll open up on my browser and let me just type in Londonderry, click on the website, and we have the website for Londonderry ice cream. Now I'd like to basically capture the logo, right? So I'll click on the menu icon and I'll click on products. Let's go to the product page and let's capture this. Now I can capture this using Shift, Windows and S on my keyboard. So you see I get the capture icon here. Now I can just drag on the screen and capture this part. Once I have captured this, that's in the memory. So I'll open up PowerPoint and I'll open up a new blank page or a blank slide. Let's delete the boxes from here for now. We don't need these boxes, and I'll Control V the logo of Londonderry ice cream. Now ideally what I'd like is the blue background, and I'd like to have the exact hex codes or the color codes, right? So we can do so. I'll click on the blank screen or the blank slide here in the background. I'll right click and I'll say format background, and where it says solid fill, I'll click on color and we'll pick the eyedropper. So I'll click on the eyedropper and you see that now I can see the eyedropper. So when I bring my eyedropper right on top of the blue palette or the blue color, I can click on this and you can see it's showing me the RGB colors, right? So it says RGB 46, 62, 124. If I bring it on the white background, it should give me the RGB as well, and you see it changes, right? So we can note down the RGB exact colors. In this case, what I'll do is I'll just click on this blue background, and once I do that, you see that I get a black background, right? So now I can right click on this, click on format background once again, go to color, click on more colors, and you get the hex code over here. So I'll copy this hex code, Control C. Let's go back to our Power BI environment. Now let's use the same hex code over here. So I'll click on the format pane or the format icon, click on canvas background, click on color, and where it says more color, now we'll paste the hex code, and you see we get the exact same color as our Londonderry ice cream website. Now you see that this part is still brown because this is coming from the theme that we had applied. So this is basically the wallpaper, so I can get rid of this if I want. In this case I'll choose white, so I'd like to keep a white background, right? Now I'd also like to import the Londonderry logo. So since we have this in PowerPoint, I'll click on this and you can use any paint tool. I have the paint tool in Windows, so I'll just type paint, click on the paint application, and I'll paste the logo here. Let's go back, let's Control C and come back to our paint, and let's Control V over here. So I'd like to get rid of the white edges, so I can just click on the background and use the scroll or use the edges to edge out the white or the white background. Now since once this is done, I can save this as a JPEG. So I'll click on File, Save As, click on JPEG or PNG, any one of them. I'll click on JPEG and I'll save it somewhere in my folder. So I'll click on Desktop. I have my Londonderry folder and I'll open up the folder and I'll name this as ice cream logo. Once I've done that, I'll click on Save. Now we have saved our logo. So let's go back to Power BI and let's import our logo. I'll click on Insert and I'm looking for buttons. So I'll click on Buttons and I'll click on Blank. Let's drag it for now and let's import our logo. So once the button is selected, you'll see that the Format button property is open up. I'll click on Button Style, and down below where it says Fill, let's enable this. Let's expand this and click on Browse. So I'll click for Browse where my icon is, and that's in the folder. So choosing my logo, I'll click on Open and we get the Londonderry ice cream. Now it says transparency 50%, so let's bring it to 0 and you can see that it's shining out. I don't need the border, so I'll disable this and let's see if we can do anything. We'll turn off the icon as well, and I think that's enough. Let's resize this and see if it fits. Well, you see that it's cutting out the complete logo. So what we need to do in this case is to basically fill it or fill the logo inside the button. So let's click on Button Style once again and let's look for the setting. Where it says Image Fit, click on Fit. You see that it changes the shape. In this case I'm looking for Fill, so I'll click on Fill and you get the dark background which we need to remove from here. So I'll just click on these edges and just try and crop the image a bit. So now this looks good enough, so I'll just drag it up to the edge and we have our blue background and we have the Londonderry logo. Right, so we've almost reached the final stages of our project, and remember that we had the button in place. So I'll select the button visual, and what I'd like to do is to use the action feature so that when the user clicks on the button, he should be able to navigate to the dashboard sheet. So with the button selected, I'll go to the Format pane and where it says Action, I'll enable this. Let's bring this down, and where it says Type, I'm looking for Page Navigation, and the destination, we'll choose the dashboard sheet. Now also I'd like to use the overview sheet on the left hand side, because that's the first page or the first sheet, and then the dashboard sheet should follow. So using control and left on my mouse, I'll drag it to the left hand side and we get the overview sheet. Now let's test our button. I'm clicking on control and the left mouse button, and you see that we are able to navigate to our dashboard sheet. So the button is in place and it's tested. Now I'd also like to bring in the decomposition tree. So if I click on the drop down and I scroll down where it says AI visuals, the second visual is called the decomposition tree. So let me select this, let me draw it on my canvas, and I'll explain in a bit what it actually does. You see that it says analyze here. We'd like to analyze our sales. So I'll click on add data, and in the search bar I'll type totals. So we'd like to analyze our totals, and it says explain by, right? So I'll click on add data, and we'd like to explain our totals by city. That's the topmost level. Down below we'd also like to analyze it by store, and then also by weekday name. Let's click out. Now you see a plus sign here. If I click on the plus sign, it gives me a high value, a low value, and these are the three metrics that we had chosen: city, store, and weekday name. If I click on city, it will expand further and it will show me the breakdown by all the cities. So you see on the topmost it says Abu Dhabi, Ajman, Dubai, and Sharjah. Now I can see that Sharjah has the highest sales, so I'd like to sort this descending wise by totals, right? So we can click on the three dots and we can say sort descending or sort by sum of totals, and instantly you can see that now Sharjah is placed on top. Now you'll see the first level over here that says city. We can drill down further. If I click on the plus sign, remember I'm choosing Sharjah, and I can also drill down for the stores in that city. So it shows me Safari Mall, Nesto, King Faisal, Butina, and so on. So these are the store levels. This is the second level. This is the topmost level, right? Now if I want to drill down further, I can click on the plus sign and I can go for weekday name. Let's click on weekday name, and it gives you the breakdown by Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And those 3 days are where the sales were made, right? Now you also have tooltips. If I hover my mouse, you'll see that it shows you weekday name and sum of totals. Now we can also enhance our tooltips. So let's click on this and let's go to properties, and in the properties it has tooltips, right? Tooltips is enabled over here. Now what I'd like to do is I would like to add my tooltips to my visual here. So I can click on this, and down below you see it says tooltips. I can click on add data, and I would also like to show my tooltips for the ice cream variants. So I'll choose all of them. Let's click on 1 liter plus 500, 1 liter tub, 2 into 500 ml, 500 ml, and then we have multi-packs, right? Now let's hover my mouse and let's see the breakup. Now you see that it gives you all the details of all the variants that were sold on Monday. Let's go ahead and format our tooltip first. So clicking on the visual, click on properties, tooltips, you have text and you have background. I need to change my background, so I can click on this. Now I need the exact hex code of my canvas here. So I can click first over here, and let's go to visual. Let's click on canvas background, click on color, more colors. This is what I'm looking for, which is the hex code. I'll copy this. Let's click on the visual once again, go back to properties, and I'm looking for tooltips in the background. Let's click on more colors and let's paste our hex code. Now let's click and hover our mouse. Now you see that the background is exactly the same color as our canvas background. I'd also like to format the background of my decomposition tree. So let's select the visual and let's do a little bit of formatting here. Clicking on size and style, let's remove the background. Now you can see that we get the same color as our canvas settings. I'd also like to change the background of this. So that should be down below somewhere here. I'm looking for headers and we have background. If I turn off the subtitles, that removes the city name, the store name. I'd like to keep it on. And let's choose the background here, clicking on more colors, Control V. And now you see that the background is exactly the same as our canvas background. So far so good. Let's cross this out. Let's close the weekday name. Let's close the store name. And let's say I'm looking for Abu Dhabi. I would like to see the highest value. So if I click on the plus sign, now you see that high value and low value. Now these two metrics are provided by the AI feature, right? So AI is basically running in the background. And if I click on high value, it'll give you the breakdown for Abu Dhabi and it'll give you all the stores where those numbers are coming from, right? So this is our decomposition tree. We have used our decomposition tree and we have also placed our tooltips and we have also formatted our tooltips, giving us the same background. Now what's remaining here is a title, and remember that we also have some remarks that were made by the customers, right? So if I expand this, you can see that we have some remarks that were done by the customers. So for this, what I'd like to do is I would like to insert a custom visual. So I'll click on the drop down and I'll click on get more visuals. This should take us to the Power BI visuals. In the search bar, I'm looking for word cloud, and we should have word cloud, which is provided by Microsoft Corporation. Let's click on that and we can add this or load this inside our Power BI desktop. I'll click on add and within a few seconds it should be added. So it says the visual was successfully imported into this report. Let's click on OK and here's the icon. Let's click on that. Let's drag it down, expand it. Now once this is selected, you have category here. So I'll click on category and I'm looking for the remarks section or the remarks column. Let's check mark this, and by default you see all the words that were highlighted in our table, they appear here, and it's a little bit like a graffiti. You could call it a graffiti. Now I'd also like to format this background, so I'll go to size and style and let's deselect this so we keep the same background. Now the beauty of this is if I click on Sharjah, you'll see that all the remarks that were done by the customers from Sharjah get selected automatically, right? So let's click on Tuesday. You see that you get additional remarks here. Let's click on Monday. Let's click on Wednesday, FOC samples, right? And let me get rid of this title here. Let's select this here and I'm looking for title. Let's uncheck that. So far so good. Let's click once again, and all I need to do now is to insert a title. So I'll click on insert and I'm looking for text box. Let's drag this and let's start typing our title, which is London Dairy Consumer Promotion. Right, so you can use Control E to select all the words. Let's change the font to around 32, and let's also change the formatting of this. So I'll drag this up, and I need to change the formatting. Let me just drag it up. Yes, so I'll click on the text box. Let's go to size and style, uncheck the background, and I think I need to just bring it in the center and just a little bit down here below so it stands out. And now our project is complete.